Hello, everyone. Before I start the session, I just want to make sure if I'm audible to all the audience. So, if you could just quickly message me and let me know if you can all hear me. A quick yes, and then I'll just get started with the session. I'm not going to hold you here for long. This is going to be a quick 20-25 minute session that I've specially devised to let you guys, you know, tell you or sort of help you with a few tips that's going to really help you a few months down the line. We have the Clat paper. So quickly, if you could just let me know in the chat box if I'm audible and if you can hear me, I'd be glad. All right. All of you, am I audible? All right, guys. So, without wasting much time, I'm going to get started with this session. I remember a few weeks ago, I had come to you and I had told you that I'm going to be taking one of these special sessions on test taking strategy, the CLAT examination. What are some of the most commonly asked questions that I get? And how can you probably score better in the mocks? So this session is going to be a quick session where I have come up with 4 or 5 most commonly asked questions that students come to me with. In fact, I was having a discussion recently with one of the kids, and I thought probably this is the best time, this is the ideal time, this is the most right time for you to probably have an idea about some of these strategies, some of these tips that I'm going to be talking about, which I can assure, I can probably guarantee is going to help you with your mock scores and ultimately the CLAT paper. All right. So before I begin this session, I will be telling you a little bit about myself. I'm assuming that a lot of my students here at CLAT Possible are seeing me for the first time. I don't know if I have already taken a class with you, or if you have seen me in your school because I've come to conduct a session on public speaking, career options in management, law, so on and so forth. So maybe you've seen me before, but if you haven't seen me before, I'm going to give a quick introduction and then we will jump it right into the topic that we've assembled and collected here today for. So my name is Abhishek Singh, and a little bit about me, and I'm also trying to kind of establish why you should listen to me or why you should pay attention in whatever tip or strategy I have to give you. I mean, for all you know, you could just look at me and like, who's this guy, why should we listen to him? So which is why I want to share my profile to let you know that you can probably trust me with some of these things that I'm going to be talking about in my session. So once again, Abhishek, I graduated from NLU Lucknow in the year 2014. And I mean, it's a long story. I was at St. Stephen's pursuing philosophy honors, and then I left St. Stephen's. I was at NIFT for a couple of months, and then I left NIFT as well. Wanted to become a fashion designer. I had also cracked the JNU Bachelor's in Foreign Language Studies program, but my dad was almost in the last stage of his illness, and my hometown is Lucknow, so I decided to come back. And CLAT, in a way, happened accidentally because I wanted to. I had pretty much made up my mind that I don't want to pursue engineering or medicine. I was a PCM student, class 11th and 12th. But like I said, I had given up on engineering, didn't really want to pursue that any, further after studying PCM in class 11th and 12th. And we had NLU Lucknow, which had just opened, probably a couple of years old. It was a swanky, fancy college, and that's how I got to know that you need to take the CLAT paper to get inside the college. I took the CLAT. I had a very good rank, but my ultimate reason behind leaving Stephens or NIFT was to stay in Lucknow, so I joined NLU Lucknow. No regrets, no qualms. I had offers from one of the top law firms in the country, but didn't really like the desk job much. So started working for Clat Possible, and I worked with them for almost 8 years. And in these 8 years, I would mentor students primarily for legal aptitude, critical reasoning, reading comprehension. But I would say the most important part of my job was traveling to 40 plus cities in, I don't know, more than 3,000 schools with more than a million students, telling them, helping them decide what careers to go for. And also, I would say, brainwashed a lot of people to pursue law as a career option. A lot of them love me for that, but yes, a lot of them, I'm pretty sure, hate me for that as well. So that was 8 years at Clat Possible. And then I decided to leave for the US. I wrote the GMAT. I got a 770 score, which is almost perfect percentile, 99 point something. I had admits from Cornell, from NYU, from Duke, and University of Michigan, and a few other places, which are like the top 10, 15 B schools, top 10, 15 universities in the US. Decided to go to Duke University, which amongst the ones that I had made was probably the best MBA program. While at Duke, I received offers from the two biggest consulting companies in the world, McKinsey and Company. I don't know how many of you have heard about them, but they're big. They're like the biggest consulting company in the world. I also received an offer from the Boston Consulting Group, BCG, which is the second biggest consulting company in the world. And I worked with them. After that, I left to work for a private equity firm, and both of these jobs were based out of Atlanta, the state of Georgia in United States. And then I got bored, decided to come back to India. My mom's alone. I also have a brother who graduated from Yale. He's been in the US longer than I, and he's married. I was single, so I'm like, it makes more sense for me to probably go back and be with my mom. And I decided to take a break, but then I started getting bored. So again, I decided to do what I love doing the most, which is mentoring students, helping them decide what's the best career for them, helping them crack the Clat paper, helping them with internships, with jobs, helping them with, study abroad after law. A lot of students keep coming to me. They tell me that they want to go to the US, Europe. So, it's a long-term relationship, which is something very special about Clat Possible. And this is something that I keep telling all my students inside the schools that I go for workshops, that it's not just a 2 year relationship or a 1 year relationship where I'm going to help you crack the Clat. I'm probably going to help you within B school cracking the best code to within law school cracking the best code to law school life, how to get best internship, best placements, if you want to foray into management, how to make it to B school, so on and so forth. So that is I, Abhishek Singh. And now moving on to the most important part of this session, which is, now with a few months left, I have an avalanche of students who keep coming to me with different questions. So I've kind of assembled all these questions and come up with 4 or 5 strategies which pretty much should be applicable to every CLAT aspirant, and which is why this session is very, very, very important. I have cracked a lot of aptitude tests and I haven't been a very hard worker, and people who know me will vouch for that. I don't work very hard, but I do work in a very smart way. And so I'm here to share strategies and tips that have helped me personally crack gazillions of aptitude tests. And I've also sent tens of thousands of students to top NLUs what helped them. So this is probably a great session where I, having cracked so many entrances, sending tens of thousands of students to best law schools, everything brought together, the finest tips that I can probably give you to crack the Clat paper. And do wait till the end of the session. It's just a 20-25 minute session, because in the end, I'm also going to reveal something which will probably help you a lot in the last leg of your preparation. All right. So let's start with tip number one that a lot of students come to me with, and I can probably help you out with that. Okay. So tip number one here, uh, I will just hold on 1 second. Okay. So the first tip that I'm going to be giving you here, guys, is try to understand this paper. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about my system, which is Clat Possible. We give you 80 marks. Okay. So just listen to me very carefully. 80 marks, each and every mark is going to have 120 questions. And so you will end up writing 9,600 questions once you're done with all these 80 marks. We make 80 marks, but how many papers does the CLAT consortium have to make? One. All right, they just have to make one paper with 120 questions. So please understand the most basic rule, which is that your CLAT paper will not be beyond the scope of 9,600 questions. It is pretty much impossible for the CLAT paper to go beyond the scope of 9,600 questions. The biggest problem is that you would be writing these 9,600 questions, attempting these 9,600 questions. On an average, let's say you will score 50% in these mocks. What would that mean? That you would not know the answers to half the questions you will get right. And now I will introduce the biggest blunder one can probably make in their prep journey, which is not analyzing the marks. So, anyway, you just look at your score. What do most of the students do? They're just going to look at the score and then probably move on without analyzing the marks. So you get 50%. You don't know the answer to half the questions, which is probably 4,500 plus questions. You don't know the answer, and you don't really care about those answers as well. You move on to the next mock, where again you score 50%. You know the answers for half, you don't know the answers for the other half. You move on to the next mock, and you keep on repeating this mistake. And at the end of the day, what do we have? You just have right answers for around 4,500 questions without probably knowing the right answers for the remainder 4,500, 5,000 questions. Even with the 4,500 questions that you got right, retention is a big problem, which is something that I'm going to address later. Retention is a very big problem. So even with these 4,500 questions that you got right, some of these answers you probably knew, some of these answers you marked, fluke word, luck word. And so even with these remainder 4,500 questions, on the day of the exam, you will probably end up remembering the answers to 2,000 questions. So out of the 100% questions that you have gotten, on the day of the exam, in your head, you are just left with the right answers and concept behind 20% questions. If you can take it up to 100%, you will get a top 3 rank. That is almost guaranteed. That is almost guaranteed you're going to get a top 3 rank, but you don't even need 100%. People who probably get the top 3 ranks in the CLAT paper is the ones who are able to retain probably 80 to 85%. Look, I'm an MBA candidate. Okay, I work with places like McKinsey and a private equity firm, so I'm very analytical in my approach. So again, like I said, even the people who get the top 3 ranks are the ones who are able to hit the 70 to 80% mark in the mocks. You at 10 to 15% or 15 to 20% will in all probability not be able to crack the CLAT. You at 30 to 40% would probably be able to crack one of the bottom rung colleges. You at 50 to 60% would probably be able to crack a middle rung college. You at 60 to 70%, like I said, will be able to crack a top 3 national law university, which is why analysis of these mocks is super important, guys. Okay, I have an analogy here where not analyzing these mocks is like getting blood work done, finding out that you have been diagnosed with some illness, and this throwing the report in the trash and not doing anything about it. How does that help you? These mocks are like lab reports which show you what are your strengths and weaknesses. If you decide not to do anything about it, the illness is just going to grow and probably, I mean, you know what's going to happen next. So please, please, please analyze the mocks, know the answers behind the right questions, and most importantly, know the right answers and the right concepts behind the wrong questions as well. That is something that you can't avoid. Okay. So, what's the rule here? Try to follow this rule. The rule that we have is 2 is to 3. What is the 2 is to 3? You spend how many hours taking the mock? 2 hours. What is the time that you should spend analyzing the mocks? 3 hours. All right. That's the minimum that you need to spend on the mock once you get the answer key. 2 is to 3. 2 for writing the mock, 3 hours for analyzing the mock. Now, of course, you'll tell me, sir, we forget a lot of these answers later. I'm going to address that point as well. But this is quintessential. This is imperative. This is integral to your preparation. You need to analyze the mocks. Otherwise, I just explained the maths. 20% lands you where, 30% lands you where, 40% lands you where, 50% lands you where, and 70% lands you where. All right. So remember this point. Point number 1. Moving on to the next point here, guys. The next point is start for sanity, not for speed. Okay. So a lot of people come and tell me, sir, what should be the ideal order of attempting these sections? First things first, disclaimer. If something's working for you, continue. I know there are a lot of aspirants who have tried and tested different strategies. They start with English, at times they start with legal, they start with GK, and some things work for them. And if it's worked for you, great, continue with that. But there's a larger group of people for whom strategies are not really working, or they don't even have a strategy in place. Like, I speak to my students and I ask them, what is your order of attempting the sections? What is the logic behind them? They go blank. So we look at the paper, जो भी पहले आया वो कर देते हैं. Or something on the lines of, sir, probably GK, because I feel either you know the answer or you don't know the answer, and so you're able to wrap up the section quickly and move on to the other section. Now, again, for people who have a strategy and it's working for you, stick to it. For people who don't have a strategy, you need to understand one thing, guys. The first 15-20 minutes of the exam is very important. It's very critical. It's very crucial. Okay. And especially the judgment day, the D day, when you take the Clat, which is going to be very different from the mock. There's going to be tremendous pressure. Pretty much in that moment, you feel that your life depends on it. People have been prepping for this exam for 1 year, some people for 2 years. I know people who've been prepping for this exam for 3 years. You feel your 2 years, 3 years, 1 year of mehnat might just go down the drain. And so there is tremendous pressure. The first 15-20 minutes are very important. Okay. So if you do not have a strategy, what I can suggest is start with the section which you feel is your stronghold. Start with the section where you feel you shine. Why? Because the first 15 minutes of attempting the section which is your stronghold is going to give you the kind of boost that will help you immensely in the paper. The first 15 minutes of picking a section which is not your stronghold without strategizing the order of attempt strategy is going to kill your paper, is going to kill your morale. In the first 15 minutes, you'll feel that you probably screwed your paper, you have already killed the exam, and that really, really is one thing that has, I can't imagine the number of students who've come and told me that's the first 15-20 minutes I attempted, I didn't know the answers for these questions, and they just killed my morale. That just killed my confidence to continue with the paper anymore. So, if you have a strategy that works, continue with that. B, if you feel a particular section in the paper is your stronghold, start with that. 3, the biggest lot. What is the biggest representation? People who come to and tell me, sir, none of the sections are my stronghold. I'm pretty much average when it comes to English, legal, quantitative methods, GK, so on and so forth. So in that case, well, like for example, GK, for people who start with GK, it's a big gamble, because you will start with the GK section. Yes, you know or you don't know, and you can wrap up the section quickly. But what if you don't know the answers for the first 5 questions? What if you're stuck on one question thinking, I did read it somewhere in the compendium, but it's not striking me at the moment? And 6, 7 questions, the first 6, 7 questions, you don't know the answer, you lose confidence, and that kills the rest of the paper. So that's probably not a great strategy. Yes, it's a quick section, you know or you don't know, but you're not knowing half the questions, which is pretty probable is going to kill your paper. So if you're pretty much average in all the sections, which I know is the case with majority of you, what should be the best section to start with? Well, I would personally say that would be the legal section, okay, which is why I call it Welcome to the Legal Launchpad. Why? Look, you may tell me that, sir, I'm pretty average with all the sections. But that is based on the mock scores that you've gotten on the sectional scores and the sectional percentiles that you've been given. But one thing that I can tell about the legal section is, at least at the time you mark the option as the answer, you have a feeling that you marked the right answer. I know it turns out to be wrong a lot of times, and you come to me fighting, sir, why is this option better? I think this option is better. There's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of fight, I understand. But at the time when you're marking that answer, you get this feel good factor that it's correct. Turns out to be wrong later, well, doesn't matter. At least in that moment, this feeling, this feel good factor in the first 15-20 minutes is very, very, very important, because it gives you the confidence, it gives you that adrenaline rush that I'm gonna slay this paper and I'm going to make it to a top 5 college, and that will bring a big difference in your score, guys. Okay. So like I said, once again, something's working for you, go ahead. If there is a particular section which is your stronghold, start with that. If you just randomly do GK because of the logic that I just shared, don't do that. And if you don't have any strategy, you're average with all the sections, probably start with the legal section. Gives you the feel good feeling in the first 15 minutes of the paper, and the mock as well. Test them in the mocks. All right. Moving on to the next tip. So the next tip here is the art of ego escaping, guys. Now this is so important, and I can't really, tell you that this is one reason why so many people end up not doing well in the Clat exam. Ego skipping. What's the rule here? 30-second rule. You're stuck on a maths question and you make it a life or death question. You will keep on solving that question. You stuck on a GK question, you will start turning the pages of the compendium that you once read to probably reach the point where you read that part you can't retain. You will reread those pages in your mind again. Stop doing that. That is harming you. That is not helping you. Even if you finally remember the answer and you wasted 2 minutes over it, it's not helped you, it's harmed you. It's killed at least 3 more questions for you in a paper that gives you 2 hours for 120 questions. So the rule that you follow here, and start implementing all these things in the mock itself, okay? Don't wait for the Clat. Obviously, it's not the Clat paper that you start applying all these strategies for the first time. Use the mocks. 30-second rule. You read a question, you give it 30 seconds by the clock. You count the 30 seconds. If you get a clear path to the answer, mark the answer. If you start getting the feeling that it's zilch, it's zero, I don't have a clear path, I will probably be stuck, I'm going to probably start flipping pages of those mocks and legal books and GK books and funda books, stop. Move on to the next question. Don't make your ego kill your paper. Okay, so follow the 30-second rule. You have a clear path to the answer in 30 seconds. Go ahead. You feel that's not the case, skip, move on. Okay, and I mean, I understand every mark makes a difference. A lot of people come to me, especially the ones who decide to pursue law as a career options, the ones who probably feel that maths is not my strong suit. Well, you can't really, I personally feel you can't really become a mathematician in 1 year of Clat prep. Well, that's okay. I know every mark will make a difference. Probably work hard enough to get average marks and make up for it. Don't spend 10 hours on maths and probably increase your score from 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 in the question when there are sections where practice or putting so many hours can actually make a big difference. That is legal, that is English, that is GK. So make up for it in other sections rather than trying to become an Einstein of maths in 1 year of preparation. All right, remember this. Next, moving on to the next rule that will help you a lot in the paper, guys. Reading endurance is the ultimate test. Okay, I mean, you know what happens is that you read the first half of the paper, and when you move to the second half of the paper, all of a sudden you start finding the paper very difficult. The paper has not become difficult. You have mental fatigue. All right. You have cognitive fatigue because of reading 60 passages. It's not that the questions have become harder or the questions have become tougher. Understand that. So, how to conquer that? Easy way. Stop short form reading. Stop burst form reading. Don't read for 10 minutes, take a break, start watching reels, probably take a restroom. I mean, if you want to go to the restroom, please go. I won't stop you from going to the restroom. But stop, all right? Stop watching reels, stop taking snack breaks, stop taking, unnecessary breaks, watching reels, talking to a friend, WhatsApping a friend. No, indulge in long form reading. This is a 2 hour paper. Start practicing from today itself. Sit on the table, pick up a book, pick up a novel, pick up an article, pick up an editorial, pick up the newspaper, and continue reading it for 2 hours without pause. In the beginning, it's going to be difficult. In the beginning, you feel as if you're going to die by the end of 2 hours if you continue reading without a break. So maybe start with 30 minutes today, a week later, 45 minutes, a week later, 1 hour, a week later, 1 hour 15 minutes, 1 hour 30 minutes, 1 hour 45 minutes, till the point you reach 2 hours of reading in a manner. Build it up, stage it. All right. I have given you this advice today. Doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to sit on the table and then not pause and continue reading for 2 hours. No, build it. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and so on and so forth until you reach the 120-minute mark. And that is when you will, again, like I said, come out of the trap where the questions are not really becoming harder in the second half, but you're able to conquer mental cognitive fatigue. Okay, so very important rule, indulge in long form reading. The next important advice that I can give you is GK FOMO. Now, retention. Look, everything that I talked about, retention becomes one of the biggest problems. Okay, and this is going to be the last part of the session, just 5 more minutes. Retention is a big problem. Now, I'm going to give you certain scientifically proven research techniques on how to retain things. Don't go with the orthodox traditional ways of marking, highlighting, and then probably writing down by looking at all these notes and think that you're going to retain. That doesn't work. There have been scientific studies performed by the biggest psychologists by universities like Stanford, Harvard, who have given us certain ways on how to retain things. What are these? Two important ways. One, as I talked about, blank sheet method. What is the blank sheet method? All right. Let's say you read 5 pages of a GK compendium. You read these 5 pages, you close the book, keep it aside. Take a blank sheet, write down everything that you can remember. Once you've written it down, open the compendium again, see what you missed, read it, close it, and then come to the blank sheet again, guess what all you missed, and fill it again. That's the best way of retaining. If you're highlighting, taking notes, that's not really going to work, guys. You will still have a hard time retaining. All right, so blank sheet. Open the compendium, read 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, build endurance. All right, don't read the entire compendium, close the book and start making notes. That's not going to work. So start with 5 pages, move to 10 pages, move to 15 pages, and everything should happen weekly. All right, not next day or the day after. 5 pages start, close the compendium, write down everything you remember, open the compendium once again, close it again, remember what all you forgot in the first take, write it down, and that will pretty much ensure that you remember things. Okay, how to revise? The blank sheet method is rule number 1. Rule number 2 is the 1-7-30 rule. What is this? Whatever you've read, the blank sheet, let's say you've made these notes on the blank sheet or the compendium or whatever it is, you read it on day 1, you revise it again on day 7, and you revise it for the third time day 30. All right, so the 1-7-30 rule is probably the best rule that I can suggest you to be able to retain. You follow blank sheet 1-7-30, and I can almost guarantee whatever you've read, you will be able to retain that A in the mocks and ultimately in the Clat paper. Moving on to the next part, which is what will change in the paper. So we've seen that the paper is pretty much going to remain the same, but there are few changes in the paper. So what are these changes? The passages, first coming to English, CR, the consortium said that, the expert committee said that we would find answers in verbatim. That's going to change. You have to involve more creative thinking, you have to involve more logical thinking, and you have to use short ways, you have to use methods that work. All right, so assumption questions, you can't just sit and start thinking, okay, whether this is an assumption or not. There are ways to do these questions, like use the negation technique. What's the negation technique? Pick the conclusion, come to the options, flip the option. If by flipping the option the conclusion shatters, it's not an assumption. If the conclusion doesn't shatter, it is an assumption. For example, you read a passage, the conclusion is A will meet B tomorrow. Option A says it will not rain tomorrow. Just flip it. What does it become? It will rain tomorrow. All right. Now, if it rains tomorrow, the conclusion that A will meet B. Even if it rains, is it possible for A to meet B? Of course it is. So when we flip the option, did the conclusion change? No. Therefore, this is not an assumption. Option 2, A will not die tomorrow. Flip it. A will die tomorrow. Now, if A dies tomorrow, conclusion, A will meet B tomorrow. Will A be able to meet B tomorrow if he dies? No. So when we flip the option, the conclusion shattered. That means this becomes an assumption. Okay. Next, the world will not end tomorrow. Flip it. The world will end tomorrow. If the world ends tomorrow, will A be able to meet B? Again, no. Conclusion shatters. This becomes an assumption. There are ways, smart ways to do this paper, and this is exactly what the consortium, exactly what the expert committee recommended, and this is what is going to be in the paper. No in verbatim things where you read something and the answer basically asks you to just repeat that in one of the options. That is not going to happen. So this will change. What will change again? No prior legal knowledge. Again, the expert committee literally showed its frustration on testing students on legal knowledge. I mean, that's something that you study at law schools. And this has led to a lot of rumor mongering. You know what? I go to a lot of schools and take these workshops, and a lot of these students are going to come to me and they're going to ask me, sir, we didn't take legal reasoning in 11th and 12th. Will we still be able to do the legal section? And I'm like, this is rumor mongering. Don't believe in this stuff. You don't need legal studies. Finally, the expert committee also felt what I used to feel, that this on asking class 11th and 12th students, majority of whom haven't taken legal studies, questions on legal knowledge, prior legal knowledge is wrong. So what does that mean? Expect old style questions. You get a principle, you get a factual situation, you apply logic. You do not really apply legal knowledge. You just apply logic and you mark the answers. So that is what's going to change. And GK, again, unnecessary trivial facts. Expert committee said that's what pretty much a lot of the GK section was made up of. That's going to change. There's going to be more qualitative questions, and the expert committee said especially on arts, literature, and stuff. So that's going to change in the GK section. Okay, so these are some of the biggest changes in the paper, guys. And what how we can help you, this is the last part. Based on the recommendations of the committee, we will be giving you 10 marks based on the new recommendations. All the questions will be based on the recommendations that the committee has stated, which you will in all probability see in the Clat paper as well. There will be new booklets on overall language and comprehension testing, which is going to be based on the recommendations. There's going to be CR questions which strengthen, weaken, assumption, the kind of questions that I just asked you, which pretty much is trying to bring the paper closer to what the LSAT, GMAT, and the GRE ask. I mean, I think that is where this is ultimately leading to, and in probably 2 years, you will find that this paper is going to be pretty much similar to the GMAT, LSAT, or what we have in the US and Europe, something very similar, all right? And then legal will have questions based on the old style without prior knowledge. You read the principle, you apply to the factual situation. Here, I must also say that past year papers starting from previous year, NLS Bangalore, NALSAR papers, NUJS papers, the starting few CLAT papers before we had passage based questions, those legal questions kind of become your Bible, and that's going to be very important. And finally, GK with focus on art, literature, and social movement. So this is what we are offering. This is available at a very nominal price of 1,999. You will find my phone number. You will find all the details in the link below. Get in touch with me. You can also book a one-on-one counseling session with me. That is something that I'm going to be offering to all my in-house students as well as outside students. Like I said, my main forte is test taking strategy, how to score more in aptitude tests. I have been there, done that. Probably plan a roadmap for you, because every strategy is tailor made, custom made, individualized. Some person has some problem. I know I took a session where I discussed a lot of general fundas, but your strategy is probably going to differ from B strategy, is probably going to differ from C strategy. So book a one-on-one online session with me. Call the number given in the link below. Get in touch with any of the CLAT possible numbers that you can find on Google or in the link or multiple places. Tell them we want a strategy session on how to score more in the CLAT with Abhishek sir, and I will see you in these sessions. Try to help you and make sure that you crack a top 5 national law university. So I think I have already taken enough time. Thank you so much, guys, and see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye. Enter.